afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are we doing today?
Good.
Oh, okay, well good. We're not afraid, are we?
Not right now.
Okay. Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about sometimes in life we're afraid. Can you think of a time you might have been afraid?
Sometimes I'm afraid of having too much schoolwork.
Too much schoolwork. I understand that. Sometimes when I was in school, I'd have to stay up late at night and couldn't think I could get it done and things like that. Feeling overwhelmed? Is that what you mean?
Yes, sir.
How about you, Griffin? Have you ever been afraid?
When flying on a plane.
Flying on a plane, yeah. Some people don't get on planes because they're afraid to fly. That's true. You know, one time I was afraid. I went and saw a real scary movie. And I came home that night and I was so scared I didn't even stay in my room. I went to my parents' bedroom. And you know, when I think about that, going to my parents' bedroom, you know, that made me feel safe. You know? Do you know in the Bible what God tells us more times than any time? Anything else in the Bible?
Be strong and courageous.
Do not be afraid. That's what he says in the Bible. So be strong and courageous, because if you're not afraid, that means you're being courageous, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. You okay with that, Griff?
Yep.
All right. Well, anyway, also, so the thing about being afraid is sometimes you're afraid when you're little or young, but a lot of times you're afraid when you get old. Some people are afraid to die, or we're afraid when we get real sick, or taking a test, or recording yourself. You know, be a little afraid there. But we should know that God is always with us. And the scripture we're talking about this afternoon is Joshua 1:9. Joshua was in the Old Testament, and it was after Moses had taken people out of Egypt, and they were about to go into the Promised Land. And Moses sent everybody over to the land they were going to take over. And the scouts who went to look at the land, most of them came back and said, man, those are some big people over there. We're afraid to go over there. But two people were not afraid. One of them was Joshua, and one of them was Caleb. So the Lord punished those people for not being courageous. And as time went on, the last two people that were still there were Joshua and Caleb, and he was speaking to Joshua, and there's a verse in the Bible that he says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So that's something we can think about as soon as you understand the language till you get to be an old person. That's something I think about whenever I go through things. And I think something we all do, because everybody's afraid at some time in life. And just to know that God is with us wherever we are. Because God is never going to take you to a place that he's not at. So if you think to get on a flight, get on an airplane, know that God is way up there in the air with you. And Wilson, whenever you're working on your schoolwork, just think you're doing the best you can. You're being strong, you're being courageous, because God is there to help you. And that's something I do, and that's something that we can learn from God, and it helps us in life. So just try and remember that as you get old, you go through college, you have children, that Bible verse comes in handy for a lot of situations. And all throughout the Bible, all those books in the Bible, God says do not be afraid. He's with us. Okay?
Okay.
Well, can I say a prayer for us in our closing?
Yes.
Dear God, thank you for giving us courage, and thank you for opening our hearts that we feel your presence in us, and that we know that things sometimes might look scary, but I just pray that these children and myself will remember that you're in our hearts. We shouldn't be discouraged, and we should not be afraid, because wherever we go, there you will be, and you don't want us to be afraid. You want us to know that we can rely on you go through times when we are afraid. We ask all these things in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. Okay, you can cut the video off.
That was fast.
Okay.
What time did we get?
Is that it?
Oh wait, we've been here for like